Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's Fola with Deep Mind Squared. Welcome to the new space. I've been a little silent the last couple weeks, but lots of changes, really great transitionings happening in my life, as I'm sure they are with you. And I wanted to come on and make this video, so let's get into it. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing a bit about the concept of compassionate depossession and what this means or looks like in the world of psychiatry, mental health. So if you haven't already, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the little notification bell so that you're updated on future videos. I'm not going to be going into all that like exorcism, head turning, whoa, like really freaky stuff in this video today, because that is like one view or perspective of depossession. And let's be honest, the way our world has really dramatized exorcism or depossession, I think it's to sell some film, make some money, and it's not really the healthiest way, because I think it really scares people from what's supposed to be a relatively more gentle process and a much more compassionate process. So I recently completed a training through a teacher, Betsy Bergstrom, down in the States. And I believe she had been the one that kind of coined this term, compassionate depossession. And it was such a wonderful class. This is something that's really like true to my heart over the last few years since my own like spiritual emergence, waking up, whatever you want to call it. And I have felt this pull to really explore and see, okay, what is this about? How can we support people who might be struggling with addictions and their mental health? And see this like healing opportunity from a new lens. And reading and following up a bit about the Spiritist down in Brazil. This is a group of people who have like different forms of, I guess, supporting and caring for like treatment care for people with mental health concerns. And what they've been doing down in Brazil is they have these Spiritist centers, which are a nice combination of mental health supports, like your traditional or conventional psychiatric supports, as well as this like holistic spiritual aspect. And they will do different types of techniques like energy passes. They will do mediumship to support someone who might have these like beings attached to them. And the premise is that these suffering beings, which again, they are suffering, they don't necessarily want to be in the experience that they are. Maybe there might be some that do, and they've latched on in some way, but many are confused and lost, and they somehow attach themselves to like a living human being in hopes to live life and experience life through this person, knowingly and a lot of times not knowing that that is what they're doing. Down in Brazil, they have these centers where they allow people the opportunity to explore both the conventional system through medications, counseling, as well as this like mediumship where they have trained mediums. A lot of it is through volunteer work, who then hold these sessions. Again, this is just my understanding from what I've read and seen, learned, but they will hold these sessions where a client will have the opportunity to have like a conversation with the beings that are then being channeled through a medium. A lot of information can be gathered. They do almost like a counseling session with not only just the person who's in hospital, but also these other suffering beings, because there could be more than one. And so this course that I took really like highlighted to me the importance and simplicity, I would say, of this form of care. Growing up in a very like religious home, I grew up seeing things that I would identify as depossession, laying on of hands and praying. Within the Catholic Church, they would call it an exorcist, which tends to be performed by a specific person who has been trained and given, like the keys to do so. But the way I have like started to shift my perspective is that this can be done, and really it's like a much more simpler process than maybe we've been told. and that it doesn't have to be as scary. I know for me, even prior to going into the training, I had some fears of like, what's this going to look like? And, what might be attached to me? And, all these different things like that really it spirals sometimes into this uncontrollable thought process. But what I really enjoyed was just the compassionate, gentle process that this depossession work can be for someone. And so I'll share a little bit with you. Going in, I didn't really have the intention of like, okay, well, there must be something attached to me, though I do think most people have some type of suffering being, energy attached to them, as little or as small it might be, or, how much it's impacting their life, or as little as it may be impacting their life. And I just went in really wanting to experience and watch and take in the lessons that needed to be learned, and also to see, okay, well, what can shift for me? And I was really surprised at like when we went through the partner like dyad work where someone was actually the practitioner and practicing on myself and pretending to be the client, and some of the experience that was being brought through me. Because what happens in this work is, you have your client and the practitioner is connecting energetically, connecting with guides, these different beings that are there to help support in, like the healing process, the transitioning process. And then the client oftentimes will be the one to give voice to whatever these entities might be, whatever these suffering beings are present. Oftentimes with someone who might be coming for this type of support, they might notice various like ailments or dis-ease in their physical body. They might get sick. They might have a lot of pains and aches, things like that. And it could also extend into the mental, emotional sort of pains as well. So maybe if someone's going through, depression, a lot of anxiety, if they have some substance use issues, and a lot of times, and I just relate this to my time working in mental health and addictions for 11 years now, is the fact that, people are trying to seek out these conventional systems for support and nothing is working. Like medication after medication is being tried. We get like the ECT, shock therapy, all these different sorts of treatments, specifically here talking about depression. And yet the person continues to have these depressive states. Then they are trying to mitigate it with exercise, with healthy eating. Some people even really change their whole world, cut out people, relationships, move, do whatever the things they might need to do. And they're still in this cycle of depression or addictions, whatever it might be. And so to me, it's like, hey, there must be something else happening here. And this is the beauty of this compassionate depossession work, is it really gets deep into the core issues or the core reasons behind an ailment. And, this might not be for everyone. Also, I think it's a matter of sometimes the physical living human being might not be ready for this work, and also that entity, that suffering being, might not be ready for the work. A lot of this push and pull sort of energy can happen. People don't show up for, the sessions and so forth. And I also say that happens with a lot of people in other modalities like Reiki, the sound therapy, and so forth. A lot of times that's a part of the practitioner's work of trying to have those conversations and be like, okay, what's going on? And knowing that this is a safe space for these suffering beings to, be supported in whatever transition that they might be seeking. In the session, the person is giving voice to the suffering being, and just a gentle conversation is taking place. It's a beautiful conversation, just, highlighting hey, are you aware of what's happening for you, suffering being? Do you know that you are in a living human being or attached to this living human, and that you might have actually passed away many, many years ago? Or you might have come from somewhere else and somehow found yourself attached. Because these beings can be a wide range of, forms. They could be human that have lived before, that are still living somehow. They could be from other dimensions, other animals. There's a huge range. I haven't even experienced all of them, that's for sure. And I feel like even with the way the world is kind of operating or moving towards, we might start seeing some new things. But this has been like a beautiful process to be able to communicate with these very unique entities and offer a loving, compassionate place of support for them. And just really holding that space and encouraging them that, hey, it's okay to transition. And I think this is such a really important piece around this work, and that I think Betsy really talks about quite well during the training, is around the concept of death. What is our relationship with death, and so forth? Because until we can really embrace that ourselves, I think we'll see more and more of this stuff happening. And, then we cling and attach to people who have passed away, or whatever the case might be, certain things in our own life, right? So this process can be just super gentle. And when I was going through my personal experience, I didn't know what to expect. All of a sudden I could feel this super intense, expansive energy that I'm quite familiar with, to be honest. And I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting that expansive, void sort of energy was coming up. And then when the practitioner was talking to this suffering being, and I was giving voice to it, which you're consciously aware of what's happening at the same time. Mostly, you kind of are in an altered state. It was apparent that this being had come from the void, that nothingness space, and that I had called it upon myself at a very young age during a traumatic event, and I was using it to protect. And it had built this relationship with me over the 34 years, or I guess maybe 28 years around the time that the event happened. It had built this relationship of offering me protection, offering me the support and the care that I was not able to get from anywhere else during that event. And then I had just continued to tap into this energy. And even though there were some positive pieces of it, it wasn't me being in my own sovereignty or my own power. And so that was really the highlighted part for me. It was okay. And it was interesting. During other people's sessions, it's most people are okay, yeah, I don't want to say bye, or I want to say bye to the suffering being. For myself, I was oh, the suffering being wants to go, but I don't really know if I'm ready. What does my life look like once I say bye? And so it took some time. Again, this is where that compassionate approach comes to. It's not a quick, Kate, come in, Kate, next being, next, let's just process you guys, transition you quick. It's sitting and being with it. And so the person who was working with me was so gentle and loving, and just gave me the time to say goodbye and allow this this being to separate from my physical and energetic bodies, and just do the parting, and that kind of a grieving process, allowing it to just unfold the way it needed to. And so I was really grateful. It was neat then, after I began to feel the expansiveness that I'd felt with that being, except this time, instead of it being this void, nothing, black sort of energy, it was a much more present energy. I was oh, okay, I see. And also, I haven't really called upon that energy to return or to connect with it, but that's another thing. It's I can if I choose. But the main thing is, now I understand my own power and how this needs to look for me, kind of stepping forward, and that I don't need to try and protect myself from, other things or events or situations in that same way. And so this is just a very powerful example, I feel, of what this type of technique can look like, how it can support people. I've seen it with clients who are coming in terms of addiction concerns, and they themselves are yeah, something has attached themselves to me. Sometimes it can happen with substance use, and that during the times of intoxication or altered state, something can latch on. So it's really important that we do the things to protect our energy when we're using those substances. But sometimes that's not always possible. I'll probably make another video about some of the ways that entities can attach, or these suffering beings can or might attach. But I just wanted to give you this rundown on this beautiful process. So I hope you found this video helpful. Obviously, feel free to share it and like it if you so choose. And I will catch you guys in the next video. Take care.